When you dig into the secret files of Nazi Germany feedback, you find more than just battle plans. You find a level of madness that's hard to comprehend. We're talking about projects so twisted and discoveries so horrifying, they sound like they were ripped from a sci-fi horror movie. I'm talking about bizarre occult rituals in the SS, weapons that defy physics, and human experiments that make your stomach turn. The Allies thought they were just fighting a war, but when they kicked in the door to the Third Reich's secret labs, they found a house of horrors beyond anything they could have imagined. And today, we're exposing the most insane of them all. So get ready, because you are not prepared for what they uncovered. First up is a weapon so absurdly ambitious, it feels like something a supervillain designed. It was called the V3 cannon, but earned the nickname the London gun because it was built to erase London from the map. Forget any normal cannon you're picturing. The V3 was a stationary supergun bored deep into a hillside in France. Its main barrel was 430 feet long, 1.5 football fields. Think of a skyscraper tipped on its side and turned into a weapon of mass destruction. The concept was as brilliant as it was insane. Instead of one giant explosive charge, the V3 used a series of smaller charges lining the barrel. As the shell accelerated, these charges would fire in sequence, kicking it faster and faster like a series of rocket boosters. The goal was to fire a 300-pound shell every single minute, a relentless artillery storm to shatter London. It was a machine gun the size of a mountain. Allied spy planes saw the massive construction site but had no idea what it was. They bombed it relentlessly. Still, the Nazis, using thousands of slave laborers, got a prototype version working and even fired test shots. But before this beast was fully unleashed, the Allies overran the position after D-Day. When they got inside and saw the scale of the tunnels and the impossibly long gun barrels, they were stunned. They'd found one of the most audacious wonder weapons ever conceived. But as insane as a 400-foot supergun is, it's not the most horrifying thing the Allies would uncover. Not by a long shot. I'm talking about an underground city built on pure suffering, hiding a secret that would change the world forever. We are absolutely getting to that nightmare at the end of the video, but to understand how they got there, you first have to understand the sheer madness of projects like this next one. This next story sounds like pure science fiction, rooted in real Nazi black projects and the testimony of an SS officer. It's the story of Die Glocke, or the Bell. Deep in a Polish mine, under the command of a notorious SS general named Hans Kammler, the Nazis were apparently building something. Witnesses described a massive object made of a hard, dark metal about 15 feet high and shaped like a giant bell. Inside, two counter-rotating cylinders were filled with a mercury-like substance codenamed Zerum 525. When activated, this thing used terrifying amounts of electricity and gave off a strange pale blue light. Here's where it gets truly weird. According to the stories, anything that got too close to the bell during a test would be destroyed. Plants would decompose into a black goo. Human and animal test subjects reportedly suffered horrific damage. This thing wasn't designed to be a weapon in the traditional sense. It seems like it was some kind of bizarre energy field or time-distorting device. The project was so secret, the SS allegedly executed most of the scientists as the Soviets advanced and took the bell, along with General Kammler, and vanished. What do you guys think happened to it? Did they really escape with some kind of super weapon, or is it all just a wartime myth? Let me know in the comments. If a life-destroying bell is weird, let me introduce you to the SS Ahnenerbe. Their official job was to find proof of Aryan supremacy. But in reality, they were basically Himmler's personal X-Files division. A band of crackpot academics and SS officers sent on the most bizarre expeditions in history. These guys were obsessed with finding mythical artifacts like the Holy Grail and the Spear of Destiny. They genuinely believed these items would give the Third Reich supernatural powers. And if you genuinely believe these forgotten histories need to be brought to light, you need to hit that subscribe button. It's the plot of an Indiana Jones movie, but it was horrifyingly real. Their madness went global. And on an Arab expedition was sent to Tibet in 1938, not just to study plants, but to find the lost Aryan homeland of Atlantis and to measure the skulls of Tibetan people to see if they were racially pure. Yes, you heard that right, Nazi skull measuring parties in the Himalayas. But the most chilling project was the Jewish skeleton collection. An Ahnenerbe scientist had over 100 Jewish men and women selected from Auschwitz, gassed, and their bodies preserved in vats of chemicals. Why? So he could create a ghoulish museum exhibit to display the inferiority of the Jewish race after the war. When Allied forces discovered the lab, they found the bodies and the meticulous, cold-blooded notes. It was the absolute fusion of pseudoscience and pure evil. As the Reich began to collapse in 1945, you'd think they would focus on conventional warfare. You would be wrong. Instead, Goebbels and Himmler cooked up a plan for a fanatical guerrilla army that would wage a campaign of terror against the Allies. They were called the Werwolves. Don't think of this as a formal military unit. It was something closer to a call to arms for the most fanatical, brainwashed civilians, including teenage boys and girls from the Hitler Youth. They were secretly trained to use explosives, poisons, and sniper rifles, then told to melt back into the population and wait for the signal to strike. Their entire purpose was to make the occupation of Germany a living hell, and for a short time, they were terrifyingly effective. They assassinated Allied-appointed mayors, sniped soldiers, and cut communication lines. They spread so much fear that Allied soldiers became paranoid of every German civilian. One of their infamous calling cards was leaving poison and booby-trapped food for Allied troops. Imagine surviving the Battle of the Bulge only to be taken out by a booby-trapped bottle of schnapps. That was the Werwolf way. The movement ultimately failed, but the discovery of their plans confirmed the Allies' worst fears. The Nazi ideology was a poison that had infected people so deeply they would rather see their own country burn than accept defeat. Okay, the werewolves were terrifying, but they were essentially fanatics and amateurs compared to the official units. Later on, we're gonna look at one SS brigade that was so monstrous, so uniquely evil, that even other hardened Nazis were disgusted by them. But now we have to look at a project that seems to come from another planet entirely. Yes, you heard me correctly. This is one of the wildest legends to come out of the war. The Haunebu and Vril flying saucers. Now remember that the Nazis were obsessed with Wunderwaffen, or wonder weapons. They were pouring insane resources into jets and guided missiles. So in that context, the idea of them trying to build a circular, vertically taking off aircraft isn't completely out of left field. According to the legends, which are a mix of alleged sightings and post-war claims, secret societies within the SS were working on radical propulsion systems based on anti-gravity. The result was supposedly a series of disc-shaped craft, from the Haunebu 1 to the massive Haunebu 3, which was said to be over 200 feet in diameter and capable of spaceflight. While mainstream history says these projects never got past the drawing board, the legend insists several were built and flown. Some even claim a final mission was launched from a secret base in Antarctica to establish a breakaway Nazi civilization. It's an insane thought, but what do you think? Was it just a wild conspiracy, or did the Nazis actually get one of these things off the ground? Whether the saucers were real or not, they represent the peak of Nazi technological ambition. But their ambition could be twisted into something far darker than just machines. We're talking about a program so systematically evil it's hard to wrap your head around. It was called the Lebensborn Program, and its goal was to mass produce the Aryan master race. Initiated by Heinrich Himmler, the program was essentially a state-sponsored breeding farm. Racially pure German women were encouraged to have children with SS officers and were housed in high-end maternity homes. The goal was to create a generation of perfect Aryan children who would populate the new German Empire. It was eugenics on an industrial scale. But that's only half the story. As the Nazis expanded across Europe, the Lebensborn Program took a sickening turn. Himmler ordered the kidnapping of children from occupied territories who fit the Aryan profile, typically children with blonde hair and blue eyes. Tens, possibly hundreds of thousands of children were stolen from their families in Poland, Yugoslavia, and Norway. These terrified children were taken to Lebensborn centers and forcibly Germanized. Their names were changed, they were forbidden from speaking their native language, and any trace of their real families was erased. Many were then adopted by German families, never knowing their true heritage. Discovering the Lebensborn program was more than just finding another secret project. It meant unearthing a state-run system of human theft. In the summer of 1944, within the deepest hell of Auschwitz-Birkenau, one of the most courageous acts of defiance took place. It resulted in a discovery that provided the world with its first undeniable visual proof of the gas chambers in action: the Sonderkommando Photos. The Sonderkommando were Jewish prisoners forced to work in the gas chambers and crematoria. They had to herd their fellow human beings into the chambers, remove the bodies, and burn the evidence. Knowing they would be murdered to hide the truth, a small group decided to get proof out. A prisoner known as Alex smuggled a camera. In a moment of unbelievable bravery, while others stood guard, he pointed the camera from inside a gas chamber building and took a picture of naked women being rushed towards their death. He took 3 more photos, capturing the horror of open-air open-air burning pits. The 4 photos are blurry, tilted, and framed by the blackness of the doorway, but they are gut-wrenching. They are the only known photographs taken by a victim at the moment of the extermination process. The film was smuggled out in a tube of toothpaste by the Polish resistance. When the Allies saw these images, it was no longer a matter of rumor, it was raw, irrefutable proof. Those photos are a testament to the horror inflicted on the innocent. But what about the men who inflicted it willingly? The ones who enjoyed it? Well, there are evil military units, and then there is the Dirlewanger Brigade. You can't even call this a military unit in any recognizable sense. It was a state-sanctioned group of humanity's absolute worst, unleashed as a weapon of pure terror. Discovering their records was like finding a playbook for hell. The unit was commanded by Oskar Dirlewanger, a man so depraved even other SS officers were disgusted by him. Who did he recruit? Initially convicted poachers, but soon the unit became the dumping ground for the entire German penal system. Murderers, rapists, and the criminally insane. They were a collection of monsters. Their mission was anti-partisan warfare on the Eastern Front, which was a license to commit atrocities on a scale that is almost incomprehensible. The Dirlewanger Brigade didn't fight battles, they conducted exterminations. Their signature tactic was to lock an entire village inside a barn, set it on fire, and then machine gun anyone who tried to escape. During the Warsaw Uprising in 1944, they went on a rampage of mass murder and rape that shocked even hardened Wehrmacht generals. They were responsible for the Wola massacre, where they murdered an estimated 50,000 civilians in just a few days. They weren't soldiers, they were a plague. We've arrived at the climax, the discovery that combines mad science, world-changing technology, and a level of human suffering so extreme it's hard to describe. This is the story of the Mythical, the secret underground factory and its attached concentration camp, Dora Buchenwald. As Allied bombing intensified, the Nazis moved their most critical weapons production underground. They took an old gypsum mine and, using slave labor, turned it into a subterranean city of death and rockets. Inside this vast network of tunnels, tens of thousands of prisoners were forced to build the V2 rocket, the world's first ballistic missile. When American soldiers stumbled upon this complex in April 1945, they were unprepared. First, they saw the rockets, dozens of them, futuristic weapons lying in a massive, dimly lit cavern. It was a technological marvel. But then they saw the cost. They found thousands of bodies stacked like cordwood and emaciated survivors who looked like skeletons. The prisoners at Dora Buchenwald worked and slept inside the tunnels, never seeing daylight, choked by dust, and subjected to constant brutal beatings. The average life expectancy was just a few weeks. Of the 60,000 prisoners who passed through the camp, at least 20,000 died building the rockets that were supposed to win the war. The discovery of Mittelwerk was a horrifying paradox. The birthplace of the space age was also one of the most depraved slave labor sites in human history. After all that nonstop horror, our final discovery is something different. Looking at a weapon or a program this time, we're looking at a place, an eerie testament to the megalomania and ultimate failure of the Nazi regime, the Wolf's Lair. This was Hitler's primary Eastern Front headquarters, a top-secret command complex hidden in the forests of Poland. This wasn't some log cabin. It was a sprawling city of over 80 buildings, including massive bunkers with walls up to 26 feet thick. It had its own power plant and railway station. It was designed to be an impregnable fortress from which Hitler would direct his war. This was the dark heart of the Nazi war machine, but as the Red Army closed in, the Nazis decided to abandon it. And they didn't just leave, they decided to erase it, using over 10 tons of explosives for each bunker. When Soviet scouts finally reached the site in January 1945, they found a scene of apocalyptic destruction. The massive bunkers hadn't been obliterated, they were too strong. They had been shattered, cracked open like giant concrete eggs. Walking through the silent, broken remains was a chilling experience. This place where so much death had been planned was now nothing but a ghost-haunted wreck. A perfect metaphor for the Third Reich, monstrous, powerful, and ultimately a self-destructing failure. So there you have it, a tour through the absolute darkest and most bizarre closets of the Third Reich. And while the ruins of their empire were being picked apart, the architects of this horror were either dead or on the run. But what about the women who stood by their side? The wives of men like Goebbels, Goering, and Himmler. Their stories of denial, complicity, and shocking escapes are a whole other level of bizarre, and it's exactly what we're covering next. So, click this video right here because you have no idea what happened to the women who shared a bed with monsters.